When beginning to tackle the task of creating a short film, I decided the best way to go about it was to research conventions before beginning the project, in order to gain an idea of how they were produced. The films I primarily looked at were The Black Hole and Get Off My Land, in order to gain a broad understanding. In both of these examples, it became evidently clear that in a conventional short film there are minimal characters, a small selection of locations, and a plot twist. And therefore I tried to emulate these as best as I could throughout the planning and filming process of my short film. During my first filming process, I went down the route of a psychological thriller, attempting to work in a dramatic plot twist not unlike the films I had studied. However, after completing this short film, I received harsh criticism of it, and decided it would be better to create something more suited to my creative ability. After creating my first short film, I began researching for my second idea, and started to think about the genre I wanted to portray in my short film. I looked back to my two favourite old classics, Notting Hill and Breakfast at Tiffany's, both great examples of a generic romantic comedy. Once I had decided on this, I began looking into more specific examples of short films that followed the romantic comedy genre, researching Thanks, I Just Threw It On and Me and You. I began the second layer of research in order to ensure that my piece followed not only the conventions of a short film, but also the genre. From my secondary research, I gained an understanding of the typical features of this genre, as both of these examples were based from a simple yet clever or funny concept or a basic storyline. I also looked into other examples of romantic comedies outside of short films, and soon realised that the initial encounter of the two potential partners is usually under unusual or comic circumstances. For example, in Notting Hill, Hugh Grant spills orange juice on Julia Roberts. I decided to incorporate both these conventions in my final piece, with my characters meeting because they were reading the same book, and basing it off the common phrase, I have nothing to wear. Furthermore, after deciding that I would include these two conventions in my film, I wanted to play off the literary theme I had introduced, involving books and old classics. Therefore, I took inspiration from Fantastic Mr. Fox by Wes Anderson, and decided to divide my film into short chapters. Wes Anderson was a big inspiration to my short film, as I have shown earlier in my planning posts on my blog. I made it clear that I was using a lot of his shots as inspiration, especially from Moonrise Kingdom. I used this shot from his film as my inspiration, as my main character Daisy is sitting against a mint and white wall wearing a pink jumper and holding a pink book, creating an overall feel of unity. I wanted to incorporate pastel and matching colours to create a shot that was nice to look at. And secondly, I used this shot from Moonrise Kingdom as a primary inspiration for my landscape film poster. However, my main inspiration came from Thanks, I Just Threw It On by Arden Rose, as the era-specific short film really resonated me and I loved the look and execution of this piece. Overall, short films allow for much more creativity than mainstream, and will often be made up of a number of creative shots and an interesting soundtrack, making up an artistic and sometimes quirky piece. The director and filmmaker are able to use more creative flair, placing their own signature look on the piece, as there is less pressure to make a profitable film for a large audience. I was aware of this fact when making my short film, and really wanted to work in my love of classic romantic comedies, and the aesthetic of the 60s and the 80s, and I think I achieved this by the look and feel of my piece, and also my use of music. After completing this research, I began to apply it to my short film. My short film lasts for 6 minutes and therefore fits into the 3 to 20 minute conventional time frame, and only consists of 2 characters, or 3 if you count the narrator. Although I conducted my extensive research and was aware that title and credits are usually seen at the end of a short film, I felt it was necessary to break this one convention and show the title at the beginning in order to make the plot twist relevant and evident to the audience. I then followed with 2 establishing shots of the main characters, therefore following a typical convention of short films and introducing the actors. Moving on, I worked in Bath's Enigma Code into my short film with my reverse sequence and the ending, which leaves the audience wanting more and unaware of what's going to happen in the future. I also used Todorov narrative structure, with the equilibrium being the beginning and the 2 characters meeting, the disruption being the instant where my main character Daisy couldn't find anything to wear, and the new equilibrium shown in the end scene. In this final scene, I also made use of a plot twist, another convention of short films. Sometimes it's visual, and other times it's a verbal line or gag. In my case, it was the latter, as I used the phrase, "Thanks, I had nothing to wear," as my plot twist. Therefore, in conclusion, I think that I have managed to produce a creative end product that has effectively adapted multiple conventions and conveyed my personal creativity and abilities well.